Have you ever bought something small and told yourself it was no big deal, only to find 6 months later that it quietly changed your life? That new apartment, the slightly fancier phone, the easier car, each one feels harmless alone. Together, they rewrite your future. Picture Marco, 32, living in a mid-sized U.S. city. He earns $78,000 a year gross, about $4,600 take-home per month after taxes and deductions. He rents a two-bedroom because working from home part-time makes the extra room useful and because the building has good amenities. Rent is $1,700, utilities and groceries run $400. He has a tech-forward commute plan, so he keeps a $350 monthly car lease. He likes the status and convenience. Student loans cost $220 a month. Credit card minimums are $180. Subscriptions, eating out, and weekend trips add $300. After bills, Marco has roughly $1,450 left, which he treats like discretionary income. New shoes, a better phone every couple of years, upgrades for friends' weddings, and occasional treat-yourself purchases. Let's stop and translate these habits into hard numbers. The $350 car lease is $4,200 a year. Add insurance and fuel, call it another $2,400 annually. That's $6,600 a year to keep a rotating leased car that never becomes an asset. Over 5 years, without inflation or investment returns, Marco spends $33,000 on mobility that yields no ownership. If instead he bought a reliable used car outright for $8,000 and invested the $550 monthly difference at a conservative 5% return, after 5 years he'd have roughly $38,000 plus a car he owns. Numbers like this aren't moral judgments, they're trade-offs. Credit card habits are more insidious. Minimum payments feel small, like you're managing debt responsibly, but paying the minimum on $6,000 of credit card debt at 20% interest stretches payments and triples the real cost. The minimum creates a feeling of control, while the balance quietly eats future cash flow. If Marco redirected even half of his $300 discretionary monthly spending into reducing that debt or investing, compounding would work on his side instead of against him. Why do smart people make choices that stack like this? Two simple psychological forces. First, immediate social feedback. We live in a world that rewards visible signals. A better apartment signals stability. A new car signals success. The reward is social, compliments, fewer inconveniences, smoother social entry. The brain treats social rewards as real currency. It's immediate and emotionally satisfying compared to the abstract promise of savings in 30 years. Second, inertia and baseline reset. Upgrades reset expectations. Once Marco leases a nicer car, his social circle expects him to pick up lunch, drive friends around, accept weekend plans that assume mobility. Downgrading feels like regression, not a neutral financial move. Small choices accumulate into a lifestyle that's hard to reverse because reversing carries social and psychological friction. Let's extend Marco's math into a longer horizon, and this is where the compounding feels less theoretical and more like real life. Suppose he continues this pattern for 20 years, $550 a month for mobility and upgrades, $300 a month in lifestyle extras, and $180 in credit minimums. That's about $13,800 a year of discretionary baseline spending. Over 20 years, no investment, that's $276,000. But if he redirected the $1,030 monthly difference, mobility plus lifestyle extras, into an index fund at 5% annually, he'd have roughly $400,000 after 20 years. That's not a fantasy, it's the arithmetic of patience. None of this argues for austerity. Marco might genuinely need a bigger apartment for health reasons or childcare. The point is the default acceptance of small comforts until they become constraints. The financially savvy don't avoid comfort. They prioritize which comforts buy freedom and which merely signal status. So how do they think differently in everyday life? Two shifts in mindset, not tactics. First, translate monthly costs into future opportunity cost. Instead of seeing $350 as just a lease, ask, what could $350 monthly become if it were invested? Making that calculation changes the emotional story. The lease becomes a forfeit of future options, not a neutral convenience. Second, test purchases with short experiments. Delay an upgrade for 3 months and redirect the money to a visible account. Does the itch persist? Often it fades as the visible result, growing balance, becomes emotionally salient. Experiments are data. They replace guilt and impulse with evidence. Let's walk through a realistic pivot Marco could try without feeling deprived. He keeps the apartment, but stops auto-upgrading his phone. He buys a solid used car instead of renewing the lease and sets up an automatic monthly transfer of $550 to an investment account. He uses part of his freed cash to accelerate credit card payoff for 6 months. After that, with the interest saved and the habit of investing established, a small travel fund still exists for real joy, but it no longer dictates his baseline. What changes in 5 years? He likely owns a car, has a small investment cushion, and faces fewer surprise financial crises. Social circles adapt faster than people fear. The loss of status is usually smaller than anticipated. The gain in freedom is immediate and tangible. This approach respects pleasure and priorities without letting incremental upgrades steal options. It's not about saying no forever. It's about saying yes with clarity. Every upgrade is a trade-off, and the wealthy aren't just people who earn more, they're people who make better long-term trade-offs consistently. So the trouble isn't the small luxuries themselves. The trouble is treating them as defaults instead of deliberate choices. When you view spending as a choice about future options, you stop being swept along by lifestyle drift. If this resonated, try one experiment. Delay the next upgrade for 3 months and move the equivalent amount to a visible, growing account. Watch how the feeling changes when the alternative is real, not abstract. If you want more calm breakdowns that connect everyday choices to long-term options, subscribe. Like the video if this shift in perspective felt useful.